Welcome to the Mastering Business Skills podcast, where we interview successful small business owners who share their own journey, mastering the skills they needed to grow and be successful in their business. Learn the struggles, the wins, and all the things they learned along the way, so you can cut down on your own learning curve.
Welcome to Mastering Business Skills. Today we're talking to Dan Collins, the founder of Franchisee First Advisors. Dan helps aspiring business owners find franchise opportunities that align with their goals and set them up for long-term success. With over 30 years in the franchise world, Dan has guided brands from their very first locations to organizations with thousands of units. Today, he uses that experience to educate and empower people to build wealth, gain freedom, and take control of their future through smart franchise investments. Welcome to the show, Dan. We're so excited to talk about all things franchise today.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm excited to be here and I love talking about franchising.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about what you do and what inspired you just to go into this business.
Sure. So I'll start the other way around. I started when I was a kid working in a franchise restaurant. Didn't even know what that was. I just started washing dishes, got promoted to being a busboy, and I thought it was amazing because I didn't go home soaking wet all day. So that was a lot of fun. And then worked my way through school as a restaurant manager in franchises. Went to school for hospitality management, came out, and then I came out and operated eventually about 125 restaurants in the Southeast US. So I was in operations for probably 15 years, and it gave me a great opportunity to help people become franchisees or to expand their franchise portfolio, because I was speaking with people. When I made the transition, I was working with Arby's, and I was speaking to people who had 125 KFCs or Taco Bells. Well, I just ran 125 restaurants, so it made it really easy for me to relate to them, and I know what's important to them. It made it really easy to kind of excel at franchise development, and worked my way through operations up to being president of a restaurant company, and then focused specifically on building brands through franchise development. So now what I do, I work independently, and I've had my business for the last 16 years. I work to help people who are interested in franchising or who are already franchisees of other concepts and are looking to expand their portfolios. And I help them by doing the homework with them, making sure, just with my industry experience, that I know they're not going to a brand that doesn't really have the support that they will require to execute that brand successfully and be profitable doing that. My goal, as you might have seen on my LinkedIn profile, my headline is "I love franchisee success," which is 100% true. The other end of that is I hate to see franchisees lose money. You know, a lot of times, if it's their first time investing in a franchise, this is a big chunk of their savings. And I hate to see people go backwards. So my goal is to use my industry experience and all of my experience as an executive in franchise brands, knowing all that behind the scenes and what all the definitions of everything that they're telling them means, to help them go through with open eyes, know exactly what they're getting involved with, and make sure that the homework that they're doing, they're asking the right questions, and it's providing that right information back to them to make sure that they understand what they're getting involved with and they have a great chance at being wildly successful.
Nice. I know when you and I talked originally, you had given me a kind of a statistic on like how many really good franchise options there were.
Sure.
Off the top of my head, I feel like it was like something like 40 out of like some insane number of franchises.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. There's about 4,200 franchises that you could purchase every year. At least 10% of those churn out every year. It's a new franchise that just started up. Next year, they're not in business anymore. So we avoid those right off the top. But I mean, that's called a micro emerging brand. But I do enjoy emerging brands. I've worked for a few emerging brands because I have the experience in all the different departments in franchising where I could impact them positively. So I kind of, it's exciting for me. But yeah, out of those 4,200 brands, there's only between 50 and 60 that I ever present to my people. because 90% of franchises, I would say, and I've seen that number from 80 to 90%, I'd say 90% of franchises are not worth buying. Some might be a very cool concept. Some are fun. But the whole goal of getting involved in a franchise, I'm looking at helping people build a legacy for their family. And, a lot of times their kids will end up taking over the business when the parents retire. That's the kind of success that I'm looking for. I want the people to know what they're getting involved with and then eventually be so successful that now they either hand it down to their kids or they have that exit that they're looking for and they sell it to another franchisee. And I do help franchisees do that. So yeah, I'd say at least 90% of franchises at least I would not recommend to my franchisees. I've had franchisees that came into me and they were asking me about franchises where a third of the franchisees were suing the franchisor. I don't like those odds. That's
Yeah.
not something I want you to choose.
No.
Now you only at best have 2/3 of the chance of being successful or at least being happy.
Right.
I don't like that. I help people avoid those brands that make a lot of promises and then don't have the support to follow through on those promises.
Yeah.
So do you have clients that come to you, Dan, that already kind of have a franchise in mind that they want, or are more of them coming to you with no idea what they want and they just want your help and advice?
It's an excellent question. A lot of times people will come to me and say, "Hey, I'd really like to own a Chick-fil-A."
Right.
Because it's the hot brand, everyone knows they do crazy business, they're closed on Sunday, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Well, that's actually not a complete franchise. You're actually an operating partner for Chick-fil-A. The other thing is they're wildly popular. Everybody wants to own a Chick-fil-A because they haven't done the homework and they don't know that. So it kind of limits, especially your exit when you're trying to sell out of that because you don't own that franchise outright. But a lot of times what I'll do is I'll help direct them towards something that they would have never considered. And I'll tell them exactly why. I'll explain to them exactly why I would consider these brands great potential. And then a lot of them purchase something that they would have never considered unless they talk to me. Because when people aren't in the franchise world, they really don't know what to look for that makes it a good investment. What they think is I went to this restaurant that I never heard of before and I really enjoyed whatever that snazzy meal was. All right, well, that's cool. But the bottom line is, can we make money selling that? And are people going to come and line up at the door to buy that?
Right.
We'll work on, finding out. I'll tell you the way that I work with people. Initially, we'll have just a 15-minute call. I want you to tell me these are what my goals are. It's just an introduction of what I do.
Right.
And what I do, by the way, is costs nothing for the potential franchisee. I get paid eventually if and when that person decides to purchase a franchise that we both feel that they could be successful at. I end up getting paid for introducing them to that franchisor. So it doesn't cost anybody anything to talk to me. And I highly recommend, if it's not me, find somebody else in the industry that has tons of experience like I do that can help you do this. Because again, it doesn't cost anything extra. Whether you buy it directly from the franchisor or you buy it through a franchise consultant like myself, it costs exactly the same. But if you just go yourself, you don't have that industry experience and that understanding, or even just bounce questions off of me. I want you to feel comfortable with this big investment that you're going to be making. It ends up being, as much as your house or more than your house sometimes, depending upon what you're looking to get invested and involved with. So I want to make sure that these people understand exactly what they're doing. So I want you to talk to somebody that understands the business. And please don't just look at headlines on LinkedIn that says franchise expert. I see that all the time. And then I look to see what the people's experience was, and it has nothing to do with any franchising. So they might have taken a course or, done I don't know what they've done, but it's funny when I'm involved with a lot of professional athletes, whether current, NFL players or former professional athletes. And I ran into a very successful guy. and we met, and he asked me, can you, what do I need to do to know what you know about franchising so I can do this smartly? And I said, well, you need to talk to somebody like me, because while you were out there on the football field when you were 13 years old, I was in the kitchen washing dishes. And while you were in college being, and then you got into the NFL and now you're a Pro Bowler, I've been out here grinding it out, learning all the things that you need to know to be a successful franchisee, coming in with zero franchise knowledge. So, we became great friends, and he's an excellent guy. But that's the kind of information that you need. And especially, I mean, he could have afforded to pay me whatever I requested. In fact, I have a lot of clients that say, when I tell them how I get paid, they're like, well, can I just pay you instead? Thinking that I might be biased and I'm trying to convince them to
Right.
buy one thing or another. This is how the industry works. All of these franchisors are willing to pay to have a great franchisee introduced to them, because they don't make money on that initial payment. They make money having successful franchisees,
Right.
and because they make a royalty off of their sales. So the more successful franchisee is, the higher their royalty is.
Right.
My goal again is just to make sure that these people understand what they're doing, and please talk to somebody who has some experience in franchising, because it doesn't cost you anything whether you talk to me or somebody else with a ton of experience. But now you'll have a much more clear picture of exactly what you're about to get involved with.
That's great advice. And I didn't even know that there were franchisee consultants that would do that and be able to help. I mean, I've seen you can buy franchises all over the place,
Sure.
but without the knowledge that you have, it's kind of like taking a shot in the dark, I
You're
guess.
exactly right, because there's a lot of places out there, and there's a ton of fantastic brands. I love franchising. I've made my entire career out of franchising. I teach classes at Florida International University, where I went to school. I was an advisory board member up at Palm Beach Atlantic University, the Titus Center for Franchising. Because again, my goal is to teach people all about franchising, and I love teaching the kids. My goal is to have them be more successful quickly,
Right.
or even quicker than I was successful. It just feels good for me to share that information. And I love going down and meeting with those kids. But my whole goal is to make sure people understand that franchising, it's the best form of finding the American dream. I mean, you could try and start your own business by yourself, and you might get, even if you have a great idea, without those systems in place that franchising puts
Yeah.
in for you, and without the team, the experienced team with all the support that they have, especially for training and marketing. Once you have the cool concept, that's great, but that's just the very beginning. You need
Yeah.
training, you need marketing, you need people to understand what you're doing, so that when people come in from that marketing, the people that are trained now give a great experience, because then that word of mouth is going to start avalanching, and everybody's going to understand that, and then they'll know they have to go out and try out whatever concept is. Or I'm a big fan of home services. The reason I'm a fan of home services is because it's really recession resistant. If your air conditioning goes out, I'm in South Florida, it was 104 yesterday when I was driving back from Tampa.
Yeah.
So if my air conditioner goes out Friday at 9 p.m., I'm calling the guy. I'm
Yeah.
not the guy. That's not
Yeah.
something I can fix. And it doesn't matter what the economy is. I would broil in here if it wasn't working.
Right.
So air conditioning, plumbing, tons of other home services where you don't need any kind of certification, but you do, take care of things for people. Senior care is another one. People get older every single day, and there's more and more people in that category. So
Oh, yeah.
that's something that's recession resistant. Plus, I love things where you're helping people. I love it that, my dad, he's a single guy now. He's a widower up in the Villages in Florida. Very cool place, but he's up there. He's 86. He's by himself. So I go up once a month or so to visit him, and I do all those little handyman type
Right.
things that he needs. But when I'm not there and I can't get there, I know that I can call a franchise, and I know who the good franchises are that are going to handle it, and go
Right.
up there and replace his garage door opener, or go up there and fix his sink. I know that I can trust those people because I know the people behind the scenes that are running the concept. So I know they train that franchisee perfectly. I know I have faith in those franchisees because I know the franchisors.
Right. That that's incredible. Yeah. So then we talk about mastering business skills. here. So what's one skill that, whether it's business or technical, that you think you've mastered that you can share with our audience now, and how they can start to learn and implement from that?
So I'd say the business skill that I use the most is the one that I attained from my experience working in all these different kinds of concepts, understanding you have to look past what people say into what their successful experience is. The way we do that in franchising is, I know most of the people that I'm referring candidates to. So I know that they're good people. They're going to take care of my candidates. They have those support systems in place and all of that. But there's a lot of good marketing out there for bad brands. So it might seem like a great idea, but I realize, you don't want to go to a brand that's a flash in the pan, I call it. Something
Right.
that seems sexy and exciting right now, but you're signing a 10-year franchise agreement. You need to make sure that brand's going to be around and exciting for 10 years.
Yeah.
So you don't want to go into something that's the latest craze because eventually it's not going to be, it's not going to be able to support that lease that you signed for 10 years. And that's a huge commitment. Most of the time, people have to personally guarantee a lease, which means you're signing on for those monthly payments for the entire time of that lease. The other thing is you want to make sure that the brands have enough, enough draw to support what you're looking to do and what your goals are. So, I understood back at the beginning that just having cryotherapy, for example, cryotherapy is cool. I like it. I go to the gym 6 days a week, so I go in and I want to try all these kind of things to help me get better. So I went in and I tried cryotherapy, and I thought it was great. But I don't think there's enough of a draw for cryotherapy alone to be a good franchise model. So, I had a consultant I consulted for a former NBA player, and he was big into cryotherapy. So he started his own cryotherapy place, and it looked very nice. The retail place that he set up, but all they had was cryotherapy. So I went in, I tried it. I asked them if it was a franchise. They said no, but we want a franchise. I said, how convenient. Here's my business card. Then I went in, I called up to set an appointment for the next one, and they were out of the liquid nitrogen that charges up the cryotherapy chamber.
Wow.
It's literally the only thing they have. And you
Right.
ran out of the juice that makes it cold.
Wow.
So that's not going to be great. So I worked with him. I told him I would need to put in red light therapy. I would do facials. I would do massages, something else that's going to complement what he's doing with the cryotherapy. But cryotherapy by itself wasn't enough of a draw to have that. I look for a minimum of $1 million a year when I'm looking at these people for top line sales, because you need to have so much top line sales to be able to have enough at the bottom line to make it worth doing. So, those are the types of things that I just grew into understanding working my way through business. So I don't know if it's a business skill that I have acquired, but I just kind of have that understanding that I know exactly what you need to look for and consider when you're looking at these different concepts.
Yeah, and that's definitely a skill because you have that forethought, to know what else they need.
And it really does speed up people's investigation of franchises, because I had the one guy came to me when a third of their franchisees were suing them. He came into me pretty hot on one of the particular brands, and I immediately, I told him, listen, if you're going to trust me as your consultant, this is what I do. I can easily introduce you to those people because they're in the program, and I'm sure that they would pay me if I introduced them. I wouldn't do that to somebody. I
Right.
don't like those odds.
Right.
There's so many good franchises out there. I'd rather direct you to one of them. So for me, I would say this isn't really a business skill. This is more of a personal skill. I have empathy for those franchisees. I always put myself in the place of those franchisees. If this was one of my cousins, would I tell them, yeah, this is a good investment for your goals? A lot of people say, would you invest in this? Well, we're not talking about it for me. If I don't see myself doing an oil change franchise, even though a lot of people can make money at that. I would do more of a pet franchise, or I would do something that's interesting to me, because my criteria is I want to make sure that, I do all that homework to make sure that the brands are solid and they have all the support and all that, and they're good people. After that, then I have to make sure that it's a fit for your financial capabilities.
Right.
Then I want to make sure that, if you're interested in being the full-time franchisee here and you're going to be running the place, I want to make sure you're good at hiring people and managing people. Some people don't have those skill sets. They're like more like, I work with a lot of project managers, and those people, they're very successful franchisees because they understand systems, they love systems, but they're
Right.
not the person out there shaking their hands and going to the BNI meetings and introducing themselves. We love to say in franchising, we want the person who's the mayor of the town. They're out there, shaking hands, kissing babies. They know everyone. They're going to wear the
Right.
gear. They're going to talk it up when you get in the elevator with them. You can't wait for the doors to open because they haven't stopped talking about whatever their business is. Those are great franchisees because they're
Right.
going to be selling and promoting their brand everywhere you go. The project managers and those data people, they're more the behind the scenes, making sure that all of these processes and procedures are in place and being effective. They know what the KPIs are. They've understood, they've shared those KPIs with their management team, and then check in regularly to make sure that they understand, hey, you need another 13 appointments by Friday to be able to hit our KPI, where you get your bonus, by the way, and then you pay them that bonus.
Right.
That's how you incentivize those people. So it depends on what their skill set is and what their goals are, to what kind of franchise they're going to get with, or what I'm going to show them and what they'll investigate. Usually we narrow it down from all those 4,200 brands down to 3 or 4 different brands that we actually discuss and then investigate. And then usually they'll knock them down to 1 or 2 that they really like. And then we start doing introductions to those concepts. And they'll do this eventually discovery days with the brands, go and check it out and actually visit the home headquarters and find out exactly who the people are, shake their hands, go back there and understand this is where we do the training. This is our entire support staff of 150 people. So it's a pretty exciting time for them when they get to that point. And it's really fulfilling for me because I think it's fun that I've introduced them and educated them on franchising. And now they're actually up and going and building this brand for themselves and for their family and their future. And most of the time, I'll tell you, in the last 3 years, 93% of the franchisees that I introduced to brands bought more than one.
Wow.
So it's really fulfilling to know that people are out there buying and growing.
Right.
They've been successful with this. One guy, he came in and he bought 4 units to begin with at a brand. And then in the next year, he's gone up to 15 locations. So
Wow.
that's an outlier. That doesn't usually happen. He was very well capitalized, but he had the capability to do that, and then he also had the capability to hire people to support
Right.
that kind of growth. So it's
Right.
very exciting. And plus, I really kind of feel like my franchisees are my friends by the time we're done the process.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people come back to me that I sold Arby's to, and then I ended up selling another restaurant concept to, or, they diversified into some other home services or some personal wellness. So it's nice to see them diversify like that and then know that they trusted me enough that they come back and ask me to help them.
Cool. So is there a common misconception that people have about franchises?
Most people think when you think franchises, it's McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King, Chick-fil-A, even though it's not a real franchise or 100% franchise, but it's a very successful business. So I'd say there's definitely more franchising than just food franchising, even though that's kind of the forefront, what everyone thinks. The other thing is, oh, I'll buy a franchise and then it just prints money. That's not a thing. A
Right.
lot of people out there, and this usually I put this up as one of my red flags, and I explain this to potential candidates. When people say, "Oh, we're an absentee model," or they really push hard on we're a semi-absentee model. What they're saying is, once you pay us the franchise fee and we train you, we'll get you up and open, and then you really don't have to spend that much time on this. I'm not a fan of those types. I don't even like the term semi-absentee because it's got the word absentee in it.
Right.
I want you to be involved. I call it, when it's that type of concept where you're not in there and you're managing people, hiring and managing managers, that I call the engaged investor model. So you're not behind the counter, you're not running the register, you're not washing. None of my people ever wash dogs, change oil, none of that kind of stuff. My people manage the business. They make
Right.
sure that the PR and the marketing is happening. They make sure that the systems are in place and people are executing the brand based on the training that they receive from corporate. That's what we're looking for. That's what my franchisees do. So you never have to worry. Like I've had people say, "Oh, you like that dog concept? I don't like dogs." You're never going to touch a dog, you know?
No.
And by the way, the thing I love about the pet concepts, employees is the hardest part of any business, no matter what business you have. What I like about the pet concepts are people that work with pets love showing up for work. They
Mhm.
love going in and playing with the
Yeah.
dogs.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a great benefit. Plus, you're going to pay these people, you're going to incentivize these people. You create a great environment for them to work in. That's a big win when you don't have to worry as much about your employees because they love showing up for work. So that's a fantastic reason why I like those dog concepts. But you don't have to love dogs to do it. I have to say, I have my little 4-month-old puppy here. She's 3 pounds. When they tell me I don't like dogs, I have to start thinking, who doesn't like dogs?
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Exactly. We're both big pet people. So-
Yeah, I have two of mine. I have four total, but I have two of mine in the room with me. I'm
Yeah,
sure
my little
Sharon,
girl's right here.
do you have yours in the room, Sharon, or?
No, actually, she's in her room. So she went to go lay down. So she's in her room.
My girl's right here, and I'm very thankful that she's being kind of quiet right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So touching on the wealth area of things, how can being a franchise owner help people to build wealth and buy back their time? And how can they know if it is the right business for them? Like you said,
Sure.
they don't like this, but they do like this, and maybe the one they don't like is a better model than the one they do like.
Right. So I'll tell you, if they don't like a brand, then I'm not going to try and push them into it because the way I work it is like I said, I do all that homework to make sure that it's a brand that gives you a great chance at being wildly successful. So that's just a given when you start working with me. After that, I find out what your financial capabilities are, what your risk tolerance is. If you're willing to go in with an investment of $150,000 over $500,000, that narrows down or it points me in a direction for which brands I'm going to show you. But I need then to find something that you're interested in. So we do a questionnaire together to find out, do you like pets? Do you like kids? Do you care what the brand is? A lot of people just tell me, I don't care what it is. I just want to make a lot of money. And I tell them that's great. That's why I filtered out those 90% plus of those brands. So all the ones I have are ones that give you a great chance of being successful. So what I want you to do now is tell me something that you're interested in out of this list, because it's always more fun to do something that you're interested in as well.
Right.
I'd
Right.
rather have you have fun going to work, or it's something that you want to be interested in. That's cool too. My goal is to have them enjoy themselves while they're doing this because they're literally getting to choose their life. They're choosing their future. Why not choose something that you want to do?
Yeah.
That's something that I did when I went into franchising. I loved franchising from the time I was a kid. That's why my entire career has been franchising. So now I get to share it with a bunch of people and I get to use my experience to kind of help them. The biggest thing is avoid a pitfall. I do not want you to lose money, but I do love franchisee success. It's my favorite thing. I always tell my people, I'm not looking to sign on average franchisees to people. I want you to go in and understand what the requirements are for you to be a top performing franchisee. Because not only is that going to make you much wealthier, and then you grow to more and more outlets, whatever the concept is. But the brand is also going to love that. I want you to be the franchisee of the year, the rookie of the year, win all those awards because that's very rewarding for you and your family. And then the other thing is not everybody is a top performer. A lot of people buy a franchise thinking once I buy this successful franchise, everything just happens, like I said before. But then they don't do the work in the background that makes you be successful. And then what happens is those top tier performing franchisees that I set up, they're going to buy out those other franchisees and expand their network. So, that's another way that franchisees can grow. If you have too many of those underperforming franchisees, that's another one of those red flags I was talking about, because that's telling me that they either signed up a ton of franchisees that they had no intention of them ever being successful, or their filter's not high enough on the people that they're bringing in, or they're not explaining the brand properly because there's too many people in that brand that either aren't opening up their second location or aren't opening up their first in time, or there's not enough that are making enough money to make it worth their time and they're selling out. So that to me is a red flag. And unbelievably, there's a lot of name brands out there that if I mention them, you guys would all know exactly what I'm talking about, and they're not good investments.
Yeah. Yeah. If you could give one piece of advice, Dan, to someone who is starting a franchise, what advice would you give them?
So I'll answer two different ways on that one. So from the perspective of a franchisor that it wants to franchise their business, I worked for a long time with a lot of people who they were either franchising already with an idea they had, and just had no idea what they were doing, or they had an idea and they wanted to franchise. They need to, number one, you need more than just the sizzle. It could be a cool concept. It doesn't matter what kind of industry it's in. Bottom line is you need great unit level economics. Franchisees look for three things. Number one, they want a relatively low initial investment. So, it might be for guys that already have 150 Bojangles. That might be, $2 million is my low level investment. All right. But for people that don't have anything, $150,000 is their relatively low initial investment. So it has to be tolerable because of that risk tolerance. Then the second thing is they want to make a lot of money. And then the third thing is they don't want any headaches. So that's the dream situation. Doesn't cost anything. I make a ton of money and I have no headaches.
Right.
That does not exist. That's a sliding scale. So you're going to relatively have that first scale of you're going to have to invest so much. Then you're going to make so much. So that's another consideration that we do. And that information is all in the franchise disclosure documents that all the brands are required to register. But they're not required to tell you how much these brands make. So that's when franchisees do the homework, or potential franchisees do the homework of reaching out to existing and former franchisees and asking them, hey, how did you like your time in this business? How has it been going for you? I always recommend they call up the franchisees and ask one question. Would you do it again? Because they might be doing okay, but it might not be worth the squeeze. They might think I'm working way too hard for what this thing is putting out. So that's a good question. And I want them to get far enough in the brands they're interested in to do that homework and talk to those franchisees. Because some of the time, like Sharon asked me before, is it something that they were thinking about or considering when they came to me? Sometimes it's not at all. But when those franchisees say, I couldn't imagine this shipping franchise, which I barely knew about, would be this successful and this much of a great investment for my family. And when they hear that type of stuff, now all of a sudden they're interested in doing more and more homework. So that's the kind of, they're unaware of a lot of different franchises out there. And when they do that homework of talking to those franchisees, that's when they uncover all that information that really makes them feel a lot more secure. And, that risk tolerance that they had, it now kind of lowers their aversion, and it builds their confidence. And then the third thing of no headaches. I mean, that's not going to happen. You're going to have some headaches. Like I said, employees are usually all the headaches have first and last names. That's kind of how it works. So you want to have, on that sliding scale, you want to have the sliders move up to where your risk tolerance meets. So if 150,000 is your risk tolerance on this one, and then you're happy that you'll make X dollars, so you move that slider up. And then when it comes to headaches, you have to consider, all right, this concept, I have to have 27 employees to make it run. Like when I was with Arby's, for lunch, to do $1,000 hour, which was their successful hour, you needed 13 employees according to their labor chart. For an hour and a half only, though. Well, now imagine the quality of employee I'm getting that's going to come in for barely above minimum wage and work for an hour and a half a day, because then I have to manage my labor for the entire day. So, that's people that may or may not show up, people that probably aren't going to be in a good mood when they do show up. Not the
Right,
kind
right.
that's the headaches that I'm not willing to have. So that's why I'm a big fan of the home services brands, because in that one you have less employees typically. If you have more employees, that's because you have a big territory and a pretty robust
Right.
system going on, and you have a great number of outlets. So I have less employees typically is less headaches. Simple systems, great training, great marketing. That's all that makes the headache scale go way down, and that's kind of what I help people do to manage that one.
Nice.
That's
And are there any trends in franchising that people should be aware of?
Um, Couple different trends. Number one, like I said, those flash in the pan concepts. Um, I have so many friends in the industry. I don't want to mention names, but I love them. I want them all to be successful. But there's just some that I don't think have enough market share out there that they're going to be given opportunity for my franchisee candidates to be as successful as I always want them to be. So while it might be a cool thing to try every once in a while, or you go to your girlfriend's, go with your girlfriends once in a while, it might not be the brand that I would invest in. Um, or another trend that's been happening now for probably the last 10 years. And then on a smaller scale for much longer than that are private equity groups coming in and buying out these franchisors and then growing exponentially by selling franchises. There's some fantastic franchise private equity groups, and then there's some that kind of have that high churn that we talked about, where franchisees are either not opening. We call it a SNO, sold but not open, SNO. When you see a brand that has, they have 25 open, but they have 380 sold and not opened, that's a red flag. I want to
Mhm.
know why they're not opening.
Right.
It's great that you could sell something, but scrupulous franchisors want to sell it and open. Like I was interviewed for the Franchise Masters, and in my video, I told people, look, I don't celebrate when I sell a contract for 10 or 15 locations. Although I'm very happy, I think it's great that we brought on a new person capable of executing that kind of growth. That's super exciting for me, for them. But now I celebrate when we open these locations, because franchisees are very excited when they write the check or wire transfer the funds and sign the agreement and they own all this territory. And then they're very nervous until they start getting them open.
Yeah.
And then once they open, they usually call me back and say, "Hey, let's buy some more." Well, what I like to do, and usually I tell them I appreciate the enthusiasm. Let's go kick butt on the ones that we just did. Get open number 12, 13, and then call me back and we'll start looking. Um, but I celebrate when we open these locations, because then franchisees are very relaxed when they see a line at the door, or the schedule's full for people to come in and do whatever the service is. That's when people are comfortable again and excited. So my goal is that nervous time in the middle between signing up and opening. My goal was always make that as short as possible. So when I was, an executive at some of these companies, what I would do is initially I brought in real estate teams, because you can't just sign an agreement and tell, if you need a retail location, you can't just tell the franchisee, all right, go out there and find a great retail space and then call us when you have one. Most of these people have never leased commercial space. So you're throwing them to the wolves by just saying, go knock on the landlord's door and say, how much do you want me to pay? That's a bad strategy. The other thing, it takes a very long time. So what I did is I worked with a company, and then eventually two companies I brought in at the last place. And then I schooled them on exactly what we were looking for our franchisees. So they knew exactly what we were looking for. So then I would introduce them to the franchisees the very day they signed their paperwork. And I said, here you go, Mr. Franchisee, this is your real estate person that's going to help you find those spaces. A week before that, I've already told the real estate company, hey, we're signing a deal for Houston, Texas in this area. I'm going to introduce you on the day they sign their paperwork, and I want you to present to them 5 spots that'll meet our criteria so that they can get out there and get started. And what we did is we shortened up the amount of, it's called development time, from the time you sign to the time you open. We shortened up that time significantly. So now franchisees are opening up really quickly, and we were opening up 90 locations a year, which allowed me to sell over 100 a year. So that's what gave me the confidence that, all right, we're doing what we said we were going to do when these franchisees came in. And now we're executing, we're giving them that, it's all a dream until those doors open.
Right.
I want that dream to become a reality. Now you're running the systems. Now you're doing your marketing. Now my franchisees are doing the franchisee part. The managers are doing the managers part, and we're growing. So it's an exciting time for everybody when that's happening. So my trend is, those private equity groups that are coming in, make sure you get in with a good one, and then do the homework that I know to do behind the scenes. And you find out that information through those documents. The FDD is a critical document. Everybody's got to give it to you if you're going to buy a franchise. It's required by the Federal Trade Commission, but it's usually a 300 and some page document. Well, I can kind of give you, no one starts on page 1 and goes through. You'll be asleep at page 6. It's happened to me. I know it. So what you want to do, I'll tell you, these are the important ones to start out reading. So if you jump to the important juicy stuff, that'll eliminate, number one, the lousy ones. And then when you find that, oh, the juicy part that Dan told me to look at looks pretty good, that's when you go back and then you look at all those other sections out of the 23 different items. So that'll save you a ton of time investigating something that's got red flags all over it on page 218.
Right.
Have you read all 300 pages of any of them?
Oh yeah, it was my job for a long time as an executive. That's why that was a real example when I said I fell asleep by page 6. It happens. It's not exciting. The good thing is most of the stuff is it's not too legalese. It's pretty easy to understand. A lot of times people say, oh, I'm going to take it to my attorney. Well, I always say that's a great idea. However, I recommend that you go to a franchise attorney, because any attorney is going to say it's just a contract. I could do contracts. Right. Well, franchise attorneys, A, understand these agreements. B, they understand that we're not going to change anything in that agreement. I registered this with the state you live in, because there's certain registration states, other ones you just have to file. But if I registered this document, I'm not going to change that document. That means that after I sign it with you, I have to now re-register, which means I can't sell to anyone else until your state gets back to me and say, okay, go ahead, we approve this now, go ahead and do it. They're not going to change a word in that document. I used to say I'm not changing a the to a the. What I'm going to change, the things that are typically able to be changed on the document, are the fill in the blank parts, which is who you are, what's your name, information, all that, obviously. Then what's your territory? How many locations? And then how much time do you have to develop these locations? So for me, typically those are the ones that we try to negotiate. If it's a smaller, more emerging brand, which I don't recommend too frequently, but I always do them on a case-by-case basis, that's where you have some more wiggle room, because the brand's just starting out and you're going to have more of an opportunity to participate in the growth of this brand as a franchisee. If you tell me you want to buy a Wendy's and you want to have your guy go and redline the franchise disclosure document or the franchise agreement, you're wasting your attorney dollars. I've seen documents come back completely redlined from the attorneys. And then when I say, no, we can't do any of these requested changes, obviously the document looks one-sided. And I want everyone to understand that from the beginning. This FDD is one-sided. It's made to protect the brand. That's the most important thing, because that's what you're buying as a franchisee. So what you're doing is you're saying, basically, I agree to abide by the rules to protect the brand and execute at a high level. Because when you have people that don't come in and execute at a high level, you want the franchisor to be able to go to them and say, hey, listen, here's a default notice because you're buying cheese from, wherever, when we need to buy this cheese specifically for the reason that it works with our recipes. And we, by the way, also negotiated a great price on that quality cheese, but we can't have you buy a lesser quality cheese. So that's That's the reason that the FDD always looks one-sided. The franchise agreement always looks one-sided. But you also, there's areas in there where it doesn't have to be so one-sided, where you have certain rights that you should be able to protect. You don't want people encroaching upon your area. I have no brands out there where the protected territory is the paint on your walls. Like if you're in a strip center, there could literally be another location on the corner of that strip center. That's something that you don't want. The franchisor might allow that because that would be an unscrupulous franchisor, because they think, oh, we could get higher sales at if we split it in two, there'll be 115% of sales rather than having 100% of sales from the one location, which would make a very successful franchisee. Well, they'll get more royalty, but at the cost of having two seriously underperforming franchises.
Right.
Those are the people we need to avoid, and that language is in that FDD. Now, I'm not an attorney, so I don't go through line by line on those documents with the people, but I need them to go through and read it. And also, most of the brands that I'll refer them to will go through and walk them through that information. Again, the brands typically aren't going to go in there and say, oh, all right, you're right. We'll give you 5 miles of protected territory where no one will come in there. That's not going to happen. But my goal is to have people understand this is what the territory restriction is, and they understand that, and according to their risk tolerance, they're willing to move forward with that. Almost every brand is going to have something where you're going to have to say, I guess I just have to understand that, if I'm a good performing franchisee, they're going to respect me and allow me to grow with this company. And the other thing I'd look for is I would ask for a right of first refusal. What that is saying, I know I'm buying this territory. The territory next to me is available. Right now, I'd like to start with this one because I have to build 5 locations in 2 years in that location. But if that other one, if somebody else comes in and wants to buy that other one, I would like to have the opportunity to purchase that because it is contiguous with my territory. And at that point, I'll have 4 locations open. I'm showing you I'm a great franchisee. I'm on my development schedule, and I'm having high volume, happy customer franchises. So I'm showing you I execute the brand at a high level. And I'm willing to do that over there as well. So I'd really like to be able to grow in the area where I live, which I always recommend for people because it's much easier to get to your locations quickly. And the more you show up at your locations and let your employees know who you are and pat them on the back and, drop off pizza every Friday or whatever you have to do to motivate these guys and create a great culture. That's much easier for you to have high volume, successful franchises. So that right of first refusal is something that I ask for a lot. Some people do it, some people don't. But these candidates, if they didn't talk to me, they wouldn't even know that that was an option to ask for.
Yeah. Yeah. So what does success mean to you, Dan? And has that changed over your career?
I'm laughing because when I was younger and when I was in college, I thought I'm going to come out of college. I want to wear a suit. That was one of my main goals. I want to be an executive. That's what it meant to me. And now I'll tell you, as soon as we're finished here, I'm going to put on my AC/DC t-shirt. I get to work from home. I get to work with my dog in my lap. I get to look out over the lake. This is success to me, owning my time, owning what I want to do when I want to do it. And that's what I love about sharing with my franchise candidates. They go from that 9 to 5, or really it's never 9 to 5. It's usually 7:30 to 7:30 and weekends included. And once they get a taste of being their own boss and realizing they control their time and they can go be the coach of their kids' softball team and they can, bring their kids to ballet practice and go to ice skating championships and all do the travel. Once they realize a taste of that freedom, they're like, everybody says to me, why didn't I do this 10 years ago?
Yeah.
So now, that wearing a suit is not successful to me. I haven't worn a tie and I can't tell you how long. So I don't do that kind of thing. So that was what really was a big change for me. When I realized, I used to want to be president of somebody's company. Now I'm president and founder of my own company and I love it. I'm the one. I don't report to a board. I have certain accountability partners that I meet with regularly. And the investment that I had to make for my business, I have a huge tech stack that I could never have imagined even, 3 years ago. I can't imagine spending the kind of money I spend on all of the technology I do just so that I can keep in touch with everybody and make sure that nothing falls through the cracks and anybody who wants to talk to me has an opportunity to do so. My company has grown now so much that I had to bring on a great friend of mine in franchising. She understands franchising, probably some of franchising better than I do. And she helps me a lot with the administrative stuff, with the marketing, with all of that kind of stuff. She's brilliant. But I've had to see what I like is I like to talk to the people and kind of direct them towards something that they have an opportunity of being wildly successful. So in order for me to have the opportunity to do that, I had to kind of offload and hire subject matter experts to do that kind of stuff. So, now that's successful for me because I get to do the part that's fun for me. It doesn't
Right.
even feel like work. And then I have other people that report into me and say, "Oh, I've handled that. Don't worry about that." I have, when I have YouTube headaches where my videos, something's not working, or, I don't know how to do all that, make the video splashes on top of. I'm not interested in learning how to do that. I have
Right.
somebody that hires somebody to do that.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So, what skill do you plan on mastering next, and why that skill?
Um, Well, I have a couple of non-work skills that I'm planning on mastering. Starting next Saturday, I'm taking my 4-month-old puppy into puppy training. So we have a year of that to look forward to.
Oh,
So
good
that's my
luck.
next
Good
skill.
luck.
I'm
Yeah.
an expert
Just
puppy
been through
trainer. Thanks.
that.
But I'm looking forward to that. It's fun for me.
Yep.
I'm a mush for my little girl already.
Yeah.
But when it comes to business, I'd say, AI has been for the last year, I've been so deep in AI, chat GPT, all the different forms of AI. Um, you know, I cringe when I look back a year ago at some of the videos I put out on YouTube using AI because it was cutting edge at the moment, and
Right.
plus I was figuring out how to use it.
Mm.
Um, but the reason I was doing AI videos is because I hate seeing myself on video. I hate hearing my own voice. So it makes me cringe. And I just had to get over it. You know,
Yeah. You
people want to
do.
talk to me. So now I put myself in my videos. I had to do it. I have now people that edit that stuff, so that's great. So that was something that I had to do. But also, I found that, I know now I could spot AI content on LinkedIn a mile away. I just
Yeah.
know the format, especially when people have those M dashes in there that ChatGPT loves to put in.
Yes.
Um, it's so easy to spot a mile away.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, always put my stuff in Chat GPT before I put it up
Right.
because I want to check for obviously misspellings and that type of stuff. But I want it to be real from my experience, but I also want it to be, kind of polished and professional as
Yeah.
well. As you could tell, I'm the least corporate guy you're ever going to meet. I told you I couldn't wait to get out of that suit once I got in the suit. But I want to relate to people on a level where they feel like I'm genuine. The information I'm giving you is real. I want you to back up everything I told you by doing the homework I'm giving you to do by talking to these brands. Once they explain what they do and what they do to support you, you'll understand why I directed you to them. It gives you a great chance at being successful. So AI has been a continuing challenge for me. It's fun. But if you're not careful, you can spend all day talking to your pal AI.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, wait, I was supposed to do some things today.
True. Very true.
So just kind of hone in on, making sure I still have my true information going out there. I don't want it to be robotic at all because I'm not like that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's next for your business?
Well, I just brought on my friend. She's my best friend and my franchise pal. So we've just done that. I really just enjoy what I do because again, I get to be in charge of my own business. I could do what I want, when I want, from wherever I want. In fact, working independently as a broker, now it's 2007. I remember sitting on the edge of the island of Maui on the phone with a woman, and she bought 2 franchises from me while I was on vacation with my girlfriend. And I came back and, went back to the room, and my girlfriend said, you've been on that phone for an hour. And I said, right, because number one, I love what I do. And now I have somebody else that's kind of growing franchise brands out there, and it's exciting for me and exciting for them. But number two, who has a better office than me? I'm dangling my legs in the water in Hawaii while I'm doing business. This is
Right.
amazing.
Yeah.
I have franchisees that go to Greece for 3 weeks a year, and they check on their emails and they text with their managers, but they know things are being handled because they've hired good people, they've trained them, they have the systems in place, and they can check the KPIs on the computer whenever they want. It's usually live time. So they know exactly what's going on. They can still be remote, they can still unplug, but then plug in once a day, on that same vacation or on our next Hawaii vacation. I would go down to the bar because it was closed at 7 o'clock in the morning, but they had Wi-Fi. So I'd go down there with a cup of coffee, have my computer, do all my emails for the day, see what came in overnight, handle my business. And then at 8 o'clock in the morning, we're going snorkeling or we're going wherever we're going. I'm having an incredible time, and my business is still going on while I'm living my best life. So it's a lot of fun for me to be able to do that. So I can't see myself doing something else. This is my retirement job, even though I feel like I'm too young to retire. Um, I love what I do.
Nice.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for taking the time to explain all of that, because I know a lot of that was new to me even the first time I met you. And even today, I learned even more from you about franchising, and I'm sure Sharon feels the same
Oh,
way.
yeah, absolutely.
It's a
Oh, it's
lot of
been my pleasure.
information so many people, I'm sure, don't realize. Because like you said, you think you just, oh, it's cool, we're going to franchise, we're going to make lots of money, and we're going to have we don't have to do anything because it's already set up for us. And
Yeah,
then
Right.
that's not a
it's not the
thing.
case. Yep.
Just because somebody else was successful at a franchise doesn't mean you're going to be successful unless you do what they did.
Yeah.
You have to put in that work. There's nothing where you're going to work an hour a week or you're going to think about your franchise and it's going to be successful without you. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen. You got to put in the work. I'm happy to help people transition over where eventually you don't work that regular job anymore and you just do the franchising because you've been so successful. But don't think you're going to be able to do exactly what you're doing now and just write a check and now all of a sudden you're rich. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been a blast. As you can tell, I love about
Yeah.
talking about franchising anytime. Feel free, hit me up anytime to talk to me.
Awesome.
Awesome.
And thank you to anybody who's viewing right now. And we hope to see you on the next episode. Thank you.
Thanks.